Hi kittens, and welcome back to Cat Talks. My name is Kat and this is the place where I talk all about books and writing. And today it is time for the July wrap-up. So I actually hit 200 subscribers in the month of July, which was an absolute surprise and shock, and I love it so much. Thank you everyone for being here and for deciding that I am worthy of your time and attention. I adore it. So to say thank you back to you guys, I'm going to be hosting a giveaway. Now the rules of the giveaway are pretty simple. You need to be subscribed to me. You need to be able to be 18 or over. You need to be in a country in which Book Depository can deliver, because I will be using Book Depository for this giveaway. And you need to be happy to share with me your address, otherwise I can't send you the book that you choose. So I'm going to be giving away £20 worth of books internationally. So to enter, all you have to do is comment down below which books you want up to the total of £20 or equivalent in your local currency, and also what superpower you would have if you could choose any. Personally, I think I would go for teleportation because I would love to be able to just nip across the pond and visit my friends and family over in Britain now that I'm living on mainland Europe. Also to buy tea, because I spend a ridiculous amount on tea. Especially the delivery costs of tea. Now that I'm thinking about it, teleportation is my jam. I'm definitely teleporting. So in July, I managed to read 16 books. So a lot of these were actually non-fiction, and I'm pretty proud of myself for my achievements. Shall we jump right in? Don't forget to hit like if you like this video and subscribe if you want to see more from me. The first book I read was an ex-library edition of Pride and Prejudice in Swedish. This is an easy reader, which means it has been translated into easy Swedish, so that people like me who are learning Swedish can read it. It was very good. I enjoyed it. I was actually able to follow a lot of the story. Obviously, I know Pride and Prejudice very well, so this wasn't too hard to follow, but still knowing the story and then being able to kind of like recognise a lot of the Swedish really helped me. The second book that I read this month was Sell It Like Serhant. This is a non-fiction, and this one was my Goodreads pick. So when I roll that ball, I have to use Goodreads to randomly list my books, and then from the top 3 choose a book, and this was one of them. I really enjoyed this book. I do subscribe to Serhant's YouTube channel, and I really enjoy the educational and motivational content he puts out. I'm less interested in New York house prices, to be honest, but I did really enjoy this book. It was well written and well expressed, and had a lot of tips and tricks, not just for salespeople, but for everyone to set and achieve realistic goals. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think I would give it a 4 stars. The next book I read was Mythos by Stephen Fry. This was actually, I won this in a giveaway hosted by What Victoria Read, and I didn't really love it as much as I wanted to. I thought Stephen Fry's voice was very clear as a person and as an actor, but I didn't feel like he did a very good job of bringing the myths to life in terms of making this a fun read as well as educational. If we contrast this with Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology, Gaiman was able, by using a very small cast of characters, to give a real personality to each one through a series of about 7 stories. Now obviously that wasn't an exhaustive list of all of the myths that Loki, Thor and the others took part in Norse mythology, but he was able from that subset to really show off their personalities and their kind of like combativeness and sneakiness, and I just didn't feel the same with Stephen Fry's book. He did cover every single god, goddess, and probably most of the nymphs and other kind of like creatures, but I didn't really get a feel for them through the book. I felt like the writing was quite dry. There were several pages that were just so-and-so, you know, had sex with so-and-so and had these children, and I just couldn't keep all of the names separate. And I really feel that Stephen Fry could have done a better job by narrowing his scope and really telling those stories, rather than just giving the synopsis of each of the Greek myths. Now this isn't my first experience with Greek myths. I mean, I read Circe not that long ago, and I've also read Greek myths since I was a child with various collections, so I found this one quite disappointing, and I think I would give it a 2 stars. I bet as an audiobook it's quite fun, because I bet Stephen Fry narrates it, and he is a very good narrator, but sadly I didn't feel like his writing lived up to the standard. I lied! So the third book that I read was actually the Astronaut's Wives Club, or Astronaut Wife Club. This was a disappointment again, unfortunately. This one is a non-fiction following the wives of the first astronauts in the Gemini, I've forgotten what they're called, in all 3 stages of the getting to the moon flights, and I felt that the way that the author described tragedy was very carefully done and very well done, and I felt like the different personalities were well contrasted, but in general I felt that the book lacked a lot of spark. It really was just kind of like a diary entry of the women, so so-and-so came back from such and such a place, and then they had an argument with so-and-so, and then it didn't have any drama or spice, and it wasn't a very well-written narrative, although it was very interesting to see kind of like the change of American history through from the very prim and proper housewife to the kind of like news reporter and the divorces that happened towards the end of the Astronaut program as things got a bit more relaxed over there. The fifth book I read was Mary Robinette's Kowal's The Fated Sky. This is the second book in the Lady Astronaut series. The first one was The Calculating Stars. I will give you a synopsis of The Calculating Stars, as I normally do with series. So, in The Calculating Stars, our main character, Elma, suffers from anxiety. Now, she's working as a calculator, which means she does lots of sums, when the world is hit by an asteroid. Now, it's the 1950s. We have prim and proper housewives in here. She is working, and her partner also works in the engineering district, but it's expected that when Elma becomes pregnant, she will stop working. Instead, however, Elma really wants to be an astronaut, and the first book details her fight for women to be included in the space program and whether or not that works. This is the second book in the series, so this is still set in the 1960s as the space program expands and all of the kind of like problems and stuff that brings. I adore Mary Robinette Kowal's take on this series. It's very hard science. You can tell that she has done her research, that she has spoken with fighter pilots, that she has spoken with astronauts. A lot of stuff in here is really good and really, really well done. It's a very realistic story. The first book dealt a lot more with interpersonal relationships, and I really did like the first book a lot more. I gave that one a 5 stars, and I also have a tag and a rant about it. But I did enjoy this. I thought this was really good. It was, as I said, a very realistic take on what can go wrong during space travel, and I gave this a 4 stars. I was also lucky enough to talk to Mary Robinette Kowal on Twitter and kind of like retweet one of her tweets and get a lot of people interested in checking out this series, which can I just say that is one of the best feelings as a booktuber and a book reviewer, is someone reading your review or your excitement for a book and then going, oh, I've just ordered this book because of your review, and look at this. You guys make my world go round, just saying. Alright, so then we come to the Witchathon, which was a week-long readathon hosted in the middle of July and focused on kind of like witchy things. And the first book that I read was A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Brigid Kemmerer. This one was in my list to read for the month anyway, so I'm really glad that I managed to fit it into this readathon. It is about a young woman from New York who gets kind of like portaled into a magical world. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. With a little twist, the Beast has to relive the same year over and over again in his fantasy kingdom. And she is kind of like obviously a little not happy with being transported into this fantasy land and expected to kind of like make friends with these people. And she starts standing up for injustices and making changes in his kingdom that he did not expect, because he has given up hope. I would really recommend this one. It's a very dark take on the Beauty and the Beast retelling, but there are several very cute and angsty moments. I would say the ending is a disappointment, and it dragged it down from a 5 star to, I think, a 3 star for me. I just felt that the author could have handled that a lot better and not left quite so many, like actually had an ending would have been great. But never mind. I do recommend this one. I think it was very well written and it definitely sucked me in, so. The 7th book I read this month was The #1 Ladies Detective Agency by Alexander McCall Smith. I have read this one before, so this was a reread. It is sort of a collection of short stories about the investigations of a woman called Precious Rambotswe in Africa. I think it's in a made-up part of Africa, to be honest. I haven't looked into it, called Botswana, and about how she finds out what's happened to missing husbands and missing children and things like that. The witch in this one was a witch doctor. I really enjoyed this. This was really well written. Really good. It had a lot of ups and downs, but Alexander McCall Smith writes an absolutely fantastic novel, and I recommend checking out this series if you're into detectives like Miss Marple and things like that. I think you will enjoy this one. The 8th book I read this month wasn't on my bingo TBR, and it was Nevermoor, The Trials of Morrigan Crow. I am so glad that I deviated from my list to pick this up. This book is a wonder, and if you've read it, you will understand the joke. This book is just brilliant. It is fantastic and full of kind of like wonder and full of energy and enthusiasm and mystery and kind of like just lots of things happening. So it's set in 2 fantasy worlds that are kind of interconnected, We have the one of Morrigan Crow, and then we have the place that she's taken to, which I've forgotten the name of. How did I forget the name of it? It's Nevermoor. So Morrigan Crow is living in her drab family. Her father is trying to be a politician, and Morrigan is cursed, which means she's going to die on the eve of her 12th birthday. However, instead of dying, a man shows up and whisks her away to save her from this death, from this curse, and takes her to Nevermoor. Nevermoor is this fantastic city with magic and with giant cats, giant speaking cats, and it's just delightful. I 100% recommend this book. It is suitable for children and adults alike. It is 5 stars and I just adored it. Alright, so we are now heading into the week of the reading rush. So the first book I read for the reading rush was the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. I was really intimidated by this book. I don't read a lot of contemporaries, and I certainly don't read a lot of wartime contemporaries, but this was delightful. This is told in letters from an author who kind of like did a column during the war and is trying now to heal from it after the war, and her correspondence with her agent, with her editor, with her publicist, but also with the wonderful literary society on Guernsey. The Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society was founded during the Nazi occupation of Guernsey, which is a real thing that actually happened and is just a horrific part of history, and I thought it was dealt with beautifully in this novel. It really drew attention to a kind of like a part of British history that we like to ignore, because honestly the British don't come out well of this either, and I want to reread this book in a couple of years. Like, it was so beautifully told and poetic and poignant and made me cry and made me laugh, and just the characters in this was so well done. And it's just really sad that Mary Ann Shaffer, the person who originally wrote it, with her family member Annie Barrows, she actually died while writing this, or towards the end of writing this, which is so sad because we'll never know her genius again. But this is a 5-star read as well, and I have absolutely no regrets in telling you to read this. So the 10th book I read was Bound for Murder. This is an arc from NetGalley. It's my first ever cozy mystery. It is about a librarian whose best friend is running for mayor when a skeleton is discovered on her grandparents' property. The mayor candidate, not the librarian. And then the librarian has to go and figure out who killed the skeleton, who the skeleton is, what's going on. But while she's investigating the hippie commune that used to be on the grandparents' property, suddenly old hippies, so like older people who used to be hippies, I don't know if they're still called old hippies. Anyway, the people who used to live as part of this commune and are now grandparents themselves start showing up dead in suspicious incidents. I thought this one could have used a little bit more editing. It was definitely rough around the edges, but that is often the case with an arc, and I would give this a 3 stars. I think it would probably be worth checking out books earlier in her series if you are interested in reading about her exploits, because this one is quite late in the series. I think it's book 4 or book 5, so you do miss a lot of the interpersonal relationships going in, and the author isn't quite used to dealing with those, I think, for new people joining the series. The 11th book I read was Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? This is volume 1 of the graphic novel, which is originally by Philip K. Dick. This is a story set in an alternate future. Can you have alternate futures? I guess alternate present now, but was originally the future. Anyway, this is a realistic or hard sci-fi based on a world where a lot of the Earth has vacated to other planets, leaving behind only a small section of humanity. There are also in this world, like suddenly in this really small world, and also in all of the human exoplanets, empathy is considered one of the key human attributes, and that's because they have cyborgs that look like us but obviously are not human and who do not have this empathy response. So things like leather handbags and eating meat are really frowned upon, and it is considered imperative for a human to have an animal on the rooftop that they keep as a pet, whether it's a dog or a cat or a sheep. And a lot of people actually have mechanical animals instead that they care for every day, because they need to keep up appearances. There are police on Earth who are charged with shooting androids who escape because they can blend in naturally with humans, and there are tests and ways of deciding who is a human and who is an android. This, as I said, was only the first volume, so I can't have spoiled too much, and I really enjoyed this actually. I feel like I would have enjoyed it a little bit more as a novel, and I think I will request the novel next time. I thought I was requesting the novel this time because I enjoy novels more than graphic novels, but I did think that the art was really well done and that it was a really, really interesting premise. The 11th book, which is the Android's Dream of Electric Sheep, the 12th book and the 13th book, none of them were on my bingo TBR, so I added a huge amount of stress for myself this month. But the 12th book that I read was Frogged by Vivian Velde Weber. No, Velde. This is, I think, a middle grade. It is about a princess who is kind of like trying to learn to become a princess and be kind and generous and all of that. And while she's learning this kind of thing she kisses a frog to try and turn him back into a prince, and ends up stuck as a frog herself when the prince disappears. She has to kind of figure a way to get back into her human body and to get back to the castle when she is kidnapped. So it's a retelling of The Princess and the Frog, essentially. I thought this was charming, I thought it was funny and relatable. The ending, again, had a lot, could have used a lot of work, but I thought this was a cute middle grade, and I would probably read something by Vivian Vande Velde again, because it did have me laughing and giggling at some of the weird things that it came up with. So I would give this a 3 stars. The 13th book that I read this month was Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. Don't worry, this is a bind-up of Sense and Sensibility, Emma and Northanger Abbey, so I only read a third of this. I did enjoy Sense and Sensibility, but I felt like Austen was still kind of maybe finding her feet with romance when she wrote it. There was a lot that could have been improved, I felt, compared to her other novels like Pride and Prejudice, but I still did enjoy it. I enjoyed the film adaptation a lot more because it gave life to the characters that felt very flat on the page, and that is the 2 main characters and their sister Margaret. So it wasn't my favourite Austen, but I did still enjoy it. I felt it was very realistic. The characters in here were really well brought to life. I felt like I knew them and that I was sitting beside them at points, and it was very well written. Austen definitely knows how to turn a phrase. The 14th book I read this month was The Forgotten Past. This was another arc from NetGalley, and I loved it. It was full of very short stories on things that we have forgotten in our past. For example, the first flight and the first motorised flight were not the White brothers, and you can definitely look up who they were in this book. It had various extracts from unsolved murders and strange things that are going on in the UK, predominantly in the UK, but it does have things from the US as well. The only criticism that I have of it is that I wish it had more female representation and women in it that were not kind of like judged for being superstitious and kind of like were commended in the same way that the men were. So there were male fraudsters in there that were really highly praised, and the female ones were not. That's all I would say. There is a very slight sexism, especially through its absence of portrayal of women. But I did really enjoy it. It was well written and it was amusing and it was full of trivia, and I think I will buy a copy for my dad. The 15th book I read this month was Clover Blue by Eldonna Edwards. If you're going to watch my vlog on Tuesday, I will go through this. It was a Once Upon a Book Club book, so in the vlog I open it and show you the presents that I got while reading it, with no spoilers, don't worry. But this one was a charming read, honestly. I gave this a 4 stars. It was beautiful, it was slice of life, it was about living in a commune in America, a hippie commune where everyone's kind of like naked all the time and they're just free love everywhere, and growing up in that kind of environment with mysterious origins when they won't answer who your parents are. This was fantastic, I loved it. So I definitely recommend reading it. I can't give you any more information than that without any spoilers, but it is beautiful and it's a beautiful coming of age story. We made it to the end! If you're still here at the end, just like comment a thumbs up down below, like not press the like, but just emoji thumbs up, or just like 3 exclamation marks or something, so that I know I'm not just talking to the void. But the final book I read this month was Read This If You Want to Take Great Photographs. This was another NetGalley arc, so I actually read 3 this month, and I really need to get on my reviews because I had to read this on the last day of the month, yesterday, which was freaking terrifying, let me tell you. I actually took notes of the most pertinent stuff that I want to practice using my camera in my bullet journal, which is okay. Especially for a non-fiction dealing with quite a technical subject. It had examples of the photographs, it had explanations of why the photographs worked and why they didn't, and really took you through all of the stages of taking a photograph, from composition through to lighting, through to various other parts, through to lenses, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well written, and the author has a very strong and passionate voice for photography and art. Alright, that is everything that I read in July 2019, which was a lot. And now I'm scared because next month I need to read 20 books, and this month I read 16, and I felt like that was stretching it, but we will see. I'm going back to work next month as well, so, and it's the newts. So what I'm saying is just wish me well. I hope you guys have a great book and a wonderful cup of tea, and I will see you guys next time. Meow.